include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
It's a bright, beautiful, windy winter's day, and as you can see, the animals are at play. This is Safari Live. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our sunset safari on this, the World Lion Day. So happy World Lion Day to everybody. Hopefully it will be an afternoon drive filled with lions. I know Tara is going to go and look for them a little bit later. Now, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Senzo, and we are down by Djuma Dam, and there is a lot going on at the moment. There is monitor lizards, there's buffalo, there's impalas. It seems as though everybody is down in this nice warm water. Now remember, this is a live safari, which means that all of you are the most important part about it. So we would love to hear from all of you. Hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. You can also get hold of us on the YouTube chat. And like I say, if you have any questions or if you would like to send through where you're watching from, it's always good to hear from all of you. There's our monitor lizard who's had a little swim. He's swam across from where the buffalo are, and he's now taking it quite easy on the shallows there. Let's see if he carries on. You'll see how amazing it is when they move through water. I think it's a bit shallow now. He's almost waddling and wading through the water, but you see that long tail that comes up every now and then. That's going to help propel this animal through the water, and they can actually swim incredibly fast. So really nice to see our monitor lizard swimming. It's also quite a warm afternoon, so I'd imagine it spent a lot of time in the sun getting warm and getting that body temperature up, which will mean that it'll be quite active, and now it can just go and look around for food, and it will be hunting in the shallows here. It will look for insects, frogs, and eggs that it can find. Sometimes they'll go after things like the lapwing eggs that were around here. Now, I'm not sure what happened to those lapwing eggs. I heard something about a naughty elephant that may have potentially squashed those eggs, but hopefully that wasn't the case and they just hatched and they got out the way. But I fear the worst for them. But if they hadn't, this guy would have been on the prowl trying to find those lapwing eggs. And now the thing is when they do go near a lapwing egg, you'll find the lapwings are very, very clever. They'll be able to push and come, and they pretend like they've got broken wings, and they'll cry and make a lot of noise, and the monitor lizard then looks at them and gets distracted, and so the lapwing will slowly move away from the eggs and pull that monitor lizard away and protect the eggs. It really is quite phenomenal to watch that interspecies relationship between monitors and lapwings, as well as monitors and crocodiles. If there was a crocodile here with eggs, you'd find that monitor lizard would be getting chased all over the place by a crocodile to keep it away. And look how it's using its tongue. You see how it goes over the mud. It uses that tongue to taste what's going on. So it's effectively the way that a lot of the animals out here, like the mammals, will smell and will try and use their sense of smell to figure out what's going on. The monitor lizard is exactly the same. It uses its tongue to taste what's going on and to try and find what is here hidden in the mud, and if there is anything that they can potentially grab. Now, Jenny Animation, you say it's a water dragon. They do look a bit dragony, don't they, as they slither through the water. I suppose this is where Loch Ness Monster came from, is something like this. I would imagine that a big monitor lizard would look quite scary on a bit of film. Now, it seems as though as we're sitting here, just more and more animals are arriving. As our monitor lizard negotiates his muddy terrain, you can see impalas coming running down. There's a couple naughty boys sparring on that area over there, and they just having a little push, and behind them is a Nyala bull that's also making his way down. There he comes. So we've got the impalas and the Nyalas, and then this biggest surprise of all is our 3 buffalo bulls. Now, I think that these 3 buffalo bulls have arrived in perfect time. They've arrived to set the stage for an epic Lion Day sunset safari, because the Nkuhuma Pride is not lying that far away from here. Vulture's Nest in a straight line is not that far, and if they hear these buffalo grunt or bellow, so it might be a really epic afternoon. I would imagine now it will still be quite sedate as the buffalo wallow and it's hot and the lions are probably sleeping, but later in the afternoon the Nkuhuma Pride, where they were this morning, might pick up the scent. Also, the wind is blowing from north to south, which is in the way of the lions, and if the lions pick it up, I wouldn't be surprised if we see them turning up at the dam and having a look at these buffalo, which would be a great way to finish our day. Now, I'm going to spend some time with all of our animals, the myriad that there are here, and while we do that, I believe Tara is with some very spotty, very cute animals hiding away from the bright sun.
Well, I think some people might debate that, whether it's cute or not, but I think certainly those cubs are very cute. So we thought we'd stop by the Hyena Den on the way to try to relocate the lions that Tristan found this morning. Good afternoon, my name is Tara, and joining me on camera is my old partner in crime, Sebastian. And it is wonderful to be teamed with Sebastian again. Yeah, sorry, I've left you hanging there, didn't I? I thought you were waving to everybody.
Hello to everyone.
Sorry, we'll get back in sync again, it's fine. So yeah, very excited for seeing some lions with Seb. We've had quite a number of amazing sightings together, so I'm sure we'll be sharing those along the way. But yeah, as I say, we thought we'd check it out. So for those of you who weren't on drive this morning, we did actually find, I think it was Gwen, quite a low-ranking female, and she's got 2 tiny cubs. We think possibly around 3 weeks, 4 weeks old, but still very black. And from their behaviour, they hadn't been coming out of the hole very much. There was a grey go-away bird that went and they darted back in the hole, but there was a few other birds like the Cape turtle dove singing, so I do think they were actually ignoring it. So I do think they have been out, but apparently this is the first time they have been seen. They were unsure of the vehicle when we first pulled around to have a better view of them. So yeah, so quite exciting, and this is what is wonderful about Safari Live, because we are live from the African bush. We have no idea what's about to happen. You are along for the ride and watch it unfold right in front of us. It is just magic. So I hope you enjoy the drive this afternoon. So we've got the one female behind us. So we were kind of thinking that maybe they'd all found some shelter out of the sun, but I think this looks to be possibly Gwen, but it is difficult to say. But she looked quite light compared to Ribbon, and I actually got a sketch of her right ear, but I'm sure you guys back home who have been on a few more drives might be able to ID her. But what I would like to do is try and see if I can pull round a bit further and see if we can get another view, but we're just worried that where she is, there might be quite a few bushes as we go around, so we wanted to show her here first, just in case we couldn't get another view of her. So we're going to try that now then, and see. Oh, she is looking over her shoulder actually, because Seb thought he could see another one, but she looked over her shoulder just then. Either that, or maybe the pups were going to come down. No? Okay, so yeah, let's see if we can try. Sorry, I'm going to make you work out. So while we try and change position, I think it's probably a good idea to head back to Tristan and see how he's catching up with those animals that he's got around. I think it's at the dam that they're at, especially the buffalo, which is brilliant news.
Well, Tara, I feel like I'm on a beach, actually, because the sun is shining, it's warm, it's pleasant, there's a bit of water around, and it's like watching the traffic on a beach on a holiday when there's people going up and down, and that's what it's like here. There's just all these different characters that are moving around. Monitor lizard's doing its own thing. There's the Franklin pecking away near monitor lizard. There's the Impalas, the Nyala, the buffalo are having a wallow. It seems as though everybody's just having a great old time. And then you've got the noisy neighbors, which are those guys right there, the hardy-dars. They came landing in and shouting at everybody, and everyone kind of looked at them, and it's like that noisy crowd that arrives at the beach. And in between them is the terrapin and our blacksmith lapwing. I actually would love to know how many different species of animals we've got here. We've got, let's see, we've got a Nile monitor lizard, so that's 1. We've got the Franklins, that's 2. Impalas, Nyala, hardydar, terrapins, blacksmith lapwing, buffalo. So that's already 8. I wonder if we can get to 10 different species just at the waterhole itself. I would imagine that we could if we looked around. I'm sure there's a little 3-banded plover lurking around here. I did hear a grey go-away bird earlier. And there's actually red-billed oxpeckers that were around too. So there's our 10 animals at the waterhole. Now the buffalo is interesting because they've arrived really out of nowhere. And while I've been sitting here and thinking about these buffalo, this morning when we were sitting with those lions, there was a lot of oxpecker noise, and I wonder if maybe the lions weren't following these buffalo tracks the whole night and towards this area, and that's why we saw them cutting through that drainage and we heard a lot of oxpeckers. I wouldn't have been surprised if maybe these buffalo weren't too far ahead of them, and it just got a bit warm and the lions decided to lie down and continue their journey this afternoon as they look off for these buffalo. But there was really a lot of oxpeckers making a lot of noise, and that is very synonymous with buffalo, so could have been that they came from that area. I'm not sure which way they did come from, but their tracks were around Hyenas Central, Gari cut line, so it is possible. So, John, you say all these animals, why don't the cats spend more time around the dams during the daytime? Well, John, the simple reason is that a lot of the time these waterhole areas don't have the most shade unless they're quite far off the waterhole, and this particular one is a little bit different because it has got quite a bit. So that's one side of it. The second side of it is that during the day cats they're hot, they're not really looking to hunt extensively, and so what you find often with cats is that they'll be lying not too far away from water, and as the sun starts to set or it's just before it rises, that's when you find them coming towards these waterholes and then looking for these animals that have been around that area for the day. So that's why you'll sometimes see the cats close by. But there are certain cats, and if you go into places like the Kalahari where it's really very dry and there's not too much around, the cats do sit at the waterholes. So there's lions that will sit at the waterholes, and as the animals come in, they then hunt them. Here, I suppose there's a lot more water, so it spreads everything out, and they can probably sit here some days for long periods of time and not see anything. And it also depends on the specific animal. Something like a leopard is not going to be able to hunt too successfully at a place like this. There's not enough cover for it close enough to the dam to have the animals come in and be able to drink. Also, when animals come to water, they are highly alert as to what's going on. They know that often they're vulnerable when they're drinking, and so when they come down, they'll often take a long time to get to the water, and they'll scan and they'll check and they'll look around, and that makes it then a lot harder for the predators. The predators like to be in places where it's a little bit denser and thicker, that they're able to just wait and watch and then surprise animals that walk near them. And we've seen in the Mara, they hunt a lot in the longer grass areas. Oh, Senzo says he's seen something. Senzo, look at you. You've got eyes like a hawk. Because behind us is, well, it's not a very hard animal to see, but I wouldn't have definitely looked behind me at any time soon. But over there, we have some long-necked, very tall giraffe, which I haven't seen for some time now. So it really is busy around the Djuma Dam this afternoon. It seems as though we could just sit here all afternoon and things will come our way. Now, I'm sure these giraffe eventually are going to end up down by the water. They're just going to slowly feed their way down. It's quite typical of giraffe to be feeding at this time, and they get normally to water a little bit later in the day. And I hope that they do come this way, because watching giraffe drink has got to be one of my favorite things. It is the most awkward stance that they have, and it just looks so complicated, and I feel sorry for them when I watch them drink. I always think that this must be the worst punishment, to make a giraffe drink, and they have to get down and they bend their knees and their neck has to go down, and they are very vulnerable when drinking. So hopefully our giraffe can get down here before any predator or lion arrives here later this evening and causes too much of an issue. But it's a female giraffe on the right. The one on the left, I'm not so sure just yet. I can't see the ossicones from here. There we go. Another female. So 2 female giraffe, which is quite cool. There's also a third one a little bit further to the left, which Senzo won't be able to see. It's behind a bush. So I'd imagine that most of them are females. But with giraffe, there's no real structure to them, so you won't have dominant male giraffe that will look after a herd in a harem and keep his females to himself like we see with the zebras. You find with giraffe they have probably the loosest social structure of all of our animals out here. And what happens with them is that they'll just come in and out and join and mix and match, and whether they be males, females, it doesn't really matter. And I was reading in a book the other day about giraffe herds, and they reckon that they did a study in parts of the Kruger National Park, and the giraffe herds didn't stay the same for more than a 24-hour period. So it just gives you an idea of just how much these guys move around within the population and how much they mix and match together. David, you're wondering if one of the giraffes is pregnant. David, to be thoroughly honest with you, difficult to see from where I am. I'm trying to look on the monitor, but it's quite glary still at this stage of the day, so I'm battling to see nicely, and it is very far away. It's, I would say, probably 400 or 500 meters away, but it is very possible. Giraffe will have their young ones at pretty much any time of the year. They mostly coincide with the summer months, but they will have their young ones at any time of the year, and so it is highly possible that there is a pregnant giraffe there. I'm just trying to see nicely. The one in the middle there does look a bit pregnant, doesn't it? It's got a nice big swollen belly, but I think there's a bit of heat haze that's also causing a bit of movement on the belly. But when we I'll go a little bit closer just now once we've had a look at our waterhole and spent some time here, and if these guys are not going to come closer, then I'll go and have a better look, and we'll be able to work out just if it is pregnant or not. And there's another female that's just joined by the looks of it. Now, those of you who are new and don't know how we sex these females and you wondering what ossicones are, well, ossicones are those structures on top of their head. And it's basically like a horn structure. It is a bit of bone that fuses to the skull after birth. And so, Sinak, I think it was, you are wondering what ossicones are and what they're for. And so basically it's a piece of bone that fuses to the skull. Now in females it's pretty vestigial, it doesn't really do too much. They won't use it to be able to fight off predators. At the end of the day it's much easier to run away and to use those long legs to kick to keep predators at bay. But males will use it extensively in their quest for mating. So when they fight with one another and try to chase each other away, they'll swing their necks with these big heavy ossicones, and they can do a lot of damage with that. It's not impossible for them to knock each other out or even to break ribs and all kinds of other things. So they are quite powerful with those ossicones. But in terms of sexing them, the female, very narrow, very thin, lots of hair on top, and the male has got very thick, very big horns that has no hair on top. Now, a lot of people think that the ossicone goes bald on the top and it loses its hair. It's actually not the case. It's basically what happens is as that ossicone gets wider in its girth on top of the head, so the skin splits basically and goes over the top, and there's actually no skin on top of it. It's almost like a bare patch on top, and no hair then grows there. So that's how it works, and that's why the females tend to have hair and the males don't. And it's nice for us to be able to sex them. I was also reading a thing about using giraffe stomachs, but I disproved that theory the other day because we were looking at a male giraffe that was very clearly a male giraffe, and according to this book, the stomach was that of a female. So it's not an accurate way to do it. The only other way to sex them without looking at the ossicones is obviously to look between the legs, which luckily for us we don't have to do because that feels like a bit of an awkward situation. But it seems like our giraffe are very happily munching away, and giraffe are probably the most finicky eaters out here. Tara was talking yesterday about how steenbok are quite finicky eaters, but the giraffe are very similar to that as well. They know that they are a large animal, that they need a lot of nutrients to survive, but the problem with them is that they don't have much space in their stomach. So they've got massive lungs, massive heart, and a digestive tract that needs to then work very efficiently to give them enough nutrients to survive. So they'll choose most of the most highly nutritious plants that they can get, which in this area is pretty much the acacia species. Now I know acacia has changed its name, and I always forget the name of it. I know it starts with a V, but I always forget what they're called now. They've changed. But the acacia plants have perfect leaves. They are highly nutritious, and for a giraffe they're the best thing to have when they're looking for food. So you'll find them often feeding off those, and they feed off those tiny little leaflets and swallow them, and then they'll regurgitate them later. So they do spend a lot of time looking for the right environments, and that's why we're lucky here in the sands is that we do have quite a large population of acacias, which allows us to support a large population of giraffe, which is great. Now, our buffalo seem to be moving off now, which is quite strange. What we want with these buffalo is actually to go southward, so they're heading roughly in the right direction. Yes, I'm talking to you three. You need to go that way, down towards Gari Cutline side and on towards Vulture's Nest, because that will certainly bode well for our afternoon adventure, and see if we can't get the Nkuhumas chasing after them. I'm pretty sure the Nkuhumas are dreaming of buffalo right now as they sleep away the heat of the day. This morning when I saw them, they were looking a little on the skinny side, so I'm sure they're looking for some food. David, you're wondering if the other animals feel safer with big buffalo around. David, I'm not sure. I don't think they process things the same way that we do. Ultimately, I suppose they will feel safer in a way that it's more eyes and ears, to be able to detect predators, but you must remember something like a monitor lizard, a francolin, an impala, a nyala, a buffalo, they all have different predators. There's things that are going to hunt francolins that are not going to hunt buffalo. There's things that are going to hunt buffalo but very seldom hunt francolins, like the lions. So each one has got its own problem to worry about, and so at a waterhole they've all got to be very careful. But the more animals there are here, the tends to be the easier it is to spot predators, and therefore the safer they should be. It's also a numbers game at the end of the day. If you're one of 50, the chances of you being killed is far less likely than if you are one of one. That's a waterhole, so I suppose there is some safety element in that, but I don't think the animals consciously will go to areas where the buffalo are in order to keep themselves safe. I think they just kind of happen upon the buffalo at a waterhole, and well, they enjoy it. And actually, when you see big herds of buffalo coming down, other than these kind of 3 bulls, and when you get those herds of 200, 300, 400 that come down to waterholes like this, everybody else clears out of the way, because there's just a sort of stampeding mass of black buffalo that come down, and they tend to push everybody else out the way. And you'll find then that everything moves and goes to other places, because the reason being is the buffalo will dirty the water, they're going to wade through it, they're going to make it muddy, and it's really not going to be a great place to drink. And a lot of the animals then just shift off to another water source, which is quite interesting. Yvonne, you're wondering if there's a particular time of year the buffalo are born. No, Yvonne, they do get born all year round, but the height of the birthing season generally is again coinciding with those summer months, so the periods of higher rainfall. But you will see buffalo being born in winter months. Last year during the drought there were 1 or 2 little babies that were born, and funnily enough the babies actually survived a lot better than the adults did. And the reason for that is probably due to the fact that they were getting a nutrient-rich milk. Well, they were getting milk from the adult. While the adult was battling to find nutrients, the milk at least was still coming through, and that little buffalo was able to at least get some. So it was an interesting phenomenon in around September, October last year, just after we had the really worst part about the drought, and then a little bit of rain came, and that flush of green was actually a death sentence for a lot of the buffalo. But those younger individuals that had fed off the richer milk were able to actually use that grass and be able to eat the grass without having nearly as many problems as what big buffalo bulls like this would have had, because their stomachs would have gotten used to this dry, dead grass. They wouldn't have been used to rich, green, moisture-filled grass, and that actually caused them to get diarrhea, and they defecated a lot of diarrhea, lost moisture, dehydrated, and that's what actually led to a lot of the buffalo dying last year in the drought. So the younger buffalo were all around, and you would go around and you'd find these sub-adult buffalo that were maybe a year, 2 years old, and they were all doing fine and wandering around without a herd. It was really quite sad actually to watch, because generally younger buffalo of that age would have not been on their own. They would have been in groupings and would have been with a herd that would have allowed them to stay much safer, and I'm sure the lions had an absolute field day on some of them. Now, our buffalo are disappearing slowly away from the dam, but the impalas are now coming in again. Joey, you're saying all these animals, you wonder what the next animal is that I'll show you. Well, Joey, I hope that there will be another one that will just come down to the dam. I wouldn't mind just sitting here all afternoon. There's something peaceful about being at Gowrie Dam, and every time we're about to move ourselves, another animal arrives. You can see impalas are now coming in. There's beautiful reflections of these impalas as they're drinking. And I think this is the stage is perfectly set for, well, I think Hosanna or Thamba would be my guess to come wandering down, and it would be really good to see one of the young boys here, I think. But I doubt that's going to happen, because the Thamba is down near the Mulawati, and Hosanna, funny enough, was with Tingana and Tundi this morning on Torchwood. Apparently he was watching them mate, so I don't know what's with the royal kids and why they are around those mating pair, but it's an interesting phenomenon. Now, while I think about that and wonder why they would do that, let's go back to Tara, who I think has done a little bit of bundu bashing, but has now got herself into a better position to view those spotted cutie little hyenas.
Well, welcome back. Sounds like you had a lovely sighting. So we did try and reposition ourselves to see the hyenas. It looks like Ntimba and Ribbon were there. They were tucked in just behind a bush, but unfortunately they did move. But I think it was Gwen that she actually did move and go into a slightly thicker bush for a shade, because it's getting quite hot out here. So she was snoozing. But unfortunately, as I say, just as we were going to try and, I think, cross over, they decided, you know what, no, shade is better. Okay, we'll go. So unfortunately, we thought we might as well leave them, because they are flat and we're not really getting a nice view of them. But hopefully, maybe later on, as it cools off a little bit, they might come out. And you never know, the cubs might come out as well. So we're heading down towards Central. We're on Buffels Hook Cut Line. I'm going to take Gowrie Cut Line to try and head towards where the lions were last seen this morning. And it is World Lion Day, so trying to bring awareness about the lions, because unfortunately it's such a charismatic creature, and everyone thinks that the lion is actually okay for numbers. It's very widely distributed, but unfortunately there's quite a few issues in terms of genetics. becoming isolated into small pockets, and if animals can't move between those pockets, then the the gene pool will actually shrink, and that can cause issues, makes the population more susceptible to disease and all sorts of things like that. So certainly trying to bring awareness about lion and lion populations. I know they're doing great work trying to keep the populations of lions, as they're right up in the border between Botswana, Zimbabwe and South Africa. There's a very important population of lions that actually move between the three countries in that area, and then they're very important for keeping the genetic variation between the populations. So I know they're doing very good work up there to try and keep that happening. Hi Carlos, and welcome on board this afternoon. Hope you're enjoying the safari so far. Carlos wanting to know how safe are we from the predators, and they're used to seeing the vehicles, and they're used to seeing people on the vehicles, so it becomes the norm for them, especially because most of them have been born exposed to the vehicles. So it's something that it's just part of their life. So they don't really associate us as food. If we were to walk out and either lie down or sit down or whatever, sort of look quite meek and mild, then they might actually decide, you know what, you look quite good to eat. So that's why if ever we come across a predator on foot, the golden rule is you do not run, because prey runs, and that triggers something, especially in the cats, that triggers something very basic, and it's like, oh, I must chase. If you think about your cat at home and you move something, the cat is immediately involved, it's focused on what you're moving. But if that thing stays still for a while, they're like, whatever, not interested. It's the same with the cat. So if you run, they're like, ooh, let's chase it, especially if they're hungry. So in the bush, the golden rule is you stand your ground and you try and make yourself look big and scary. So quite often there's a bit of swearing involved. I don't know why, that makes you feel braver. And sort of throwing your arms up to make yourself look taller, and that is the general way in the bush. So if an animal comes across a larger animal, they try and make themselves look big if they are going to stand the ground. So if you think about a cat coming across a dog in a domestic environment, the cat raises its back and raises its fur and spits and snarls, even though the cat might be much smaller than the dog, but it works because it stood its ground, and the dog's going, oh, that's not normal, I don't like the look of that. So it's the same principle in the bush. So I think we're going to take Gary Cutline. I think Tristan's still with some animals for you to catch up with, so we'll hopefully have some animals of our own when you come back to us. So enjoy.
We are, Tara. We've now found our next species. It seems as though it's just a busy day around the dam itself. The zebras are just on the edge of the dam on the open area. There's a stallion and a few females walking around, and I was trying to check very carefully if it was potentially the same herd with our injured zebra from the other day, but I don't see any sign of an injured zebra here, so it could be a different grouping. There's giraffe are just in the background as well, and I always have to giggle to myself when I see zebra and giraffe, because here in South Africa we have a band called Zebra and Giraffe, and I don't know why, it always just makes me chuckle when I think of there's a band called Zebra and Giraffe, and the fact that when they are together, because they're not actually together that often, that it is quite funny. Now, our zebras, you can see, are moving slowly but surely away from the dam, so I would imagine that they've already had a drink, but as they move, I don't know if you can see that their heads bob quite extensively. So the reason why that is because unfortunately for a zebra, they get a parasite that gets into their nostril called a botfly, and that botfly causes irritation aplenty, and so as they bob their head like that, it just helps to ease that little larvae moving around inside there and stops them from getting too irritable, and it helps to ease what's going on. So a lot of it is that. You can also see there's a bit of grooming and interaction that will go on. Zebra are probably some of the most sociable animals that we have out here. So unlike the giraffe that don't form a strong bond, here in South Africa our zebras tend to form a very strong bond. The male is very protective of his females. You can see he's the one last at the back here by the looks of it, and he'll make sure that he defends all of his females and keeps his harem in check, and they will groom each other and stand side by side to keep the flies away. It's all very, very tight-knit unit. Now I'm going to quickly just shoot ahead because I want to just get them with the giraffe. The giraffe are just where the zebra are walking. Well, at least one giraffe is. So I want to try and get them all together and see how it looks when we have them all lined up. Now, I believe Tyler, why did I say Tyler? Taylor and Tara are killing me at the moment. I'm sorry, Tara, I do apologize, and I'm sorry, Taylor. But the two of you have just merged into one person, so let's go across to Tyler, who's got apparently a screaming baby elephant.
Thanks, Tristan. But yes, we've got quite a comical little bull elephant here chasing the Impala, and he kind of did a bit of a trumpet just then, and Mum went, "Is there something going on?" So she came down to investigate and then just gone, "Okay." You're just causing havoc. Luckily for the Impala. But that is sometimes the problem, actually, when the little baby elephants are doing a little trumpeting, Mum thinks, "Oh, something's going on." And especially if you're the wrong side of that little elephant, then she thinks that you've done something. No, it wasn't me. So I've just seen her temporal lobe just at the back of her eye is actually weeping slightly. So she's either a little bit stressed, maybe she's come across a predator, or she's in estrus. I think that little bull's just chased the Impala back again. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get another view of him. I'll see if he doesn't come out. We'll see if we can try and move forward a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool. Just see, where did you go? Yeah, he's just behind the tree at the back. We might get another view of him if we just go down a little bit more. Oh, we can get a view of Mum. We can kind of see him. He's got his back to us at the moment. But yeah, at least you might be able to see the temporal lobe I was just talking about. Now in males, you do look for that as well to see if they are in must, because that means that they could be slightly more aggressive than what they would be if they were not in must. But we're just wondering where the rest of the herd are, because it's just her and her baby. Now she might be at the back of the herd, maybe. Could be the rest of the herd is somewhere around. Or it could be that she is on her own. Let's say elephants are very social creatures, but maybe sometimes they just prefer a little bit of time to themselves. Now, she is using her feet to try and kick some of the vegetation up. They will also dig up roots as well. Occasionally you might see them actually using their tusks, and it is thought that they actually favour one tusk over the other for either digging or breaking branches over it, and sometimes you can actually see that wear down, so you might get one tusk shorter than the other. Using that very powerful trunk to try and locate anything of interest. Now obviously if you have a look clearly, their eyes are very small, so their eyesight's not brilliant. It will be good for close-up stuff, but from here we're probably going to be blurred to her. So their nose kind of makes up for that, because they've got an incredibly strong sense of smell. They're actually much better than a dog's. I forget what it is now. It's something like 8 times better than a bloodhound or something. It's just incredibly good. So if she can just sniff out any morsel of food that is attractive to her, and they can just pick out one blade of grass with the tip of the trunk, or knock over a tree, or use the trunk to shake the tree so fruits drop out. It really is quite amazing what they can get the trunk around. I've just heard a few more branches breaking. So just across the way from where she is, I think that's where the rest of the herd must be. There you go, you can see her using her foot there again. Hi, Cenac. Cenac wanting to know, when does a female start coming into estrus? And it can be as early as 12 years old, can be usually sort of more average around the 14, 15-year-old mark. And when it's her first mating, the females will often support her through that. So it's got to be quite intimidating for quite a large bull sometimes to mate with quite a small elephant. So they will often almost hold a hand through it. But that's what I always find quite amazing, is the similarities between elephants and humans. I mean, the females stay with their female relatives, and as I say, they come into estrus roughly around the 14, 15-year-old, which is about the same as a human going through puberty, and the males also about 16, 18, they start moving away from the family group. But certainly it's a lot more complicated than what we really gave elephants credit for. And you can start seeing the large herds of relatives and distant relatives all coming together, and then they break away again, usually during the summertime when there's more food available. That little bull's found something tasty at the back there. Snazzy! She's a beautiful Ellie. Yes, she is indeed. Now you can see her flapping her ears every so often. That's not aggression. That is her trying to keep cool. So it can take about 20 minutes to cycle all the blood in her body through those ears, but by flapping those ears she can actually reduce the temperature by about 3 degrees. Now that can mean quite a lot. It doesn't sound it, but it is quite a drop in temperature. So by flapping the ears, obviously it allows the air to flow over them and helps to just remove the heat from the veins that come very close to the surface of the skin. Here comes the little bull out, just popping out from behind the bush, behind his mum. Oh, so from the largest land mammal to the tallest land mammal.
Well, indeed, Tara, we have our tallest one stretching, trying to get as much nutrients as it can from the top of this tree. It's actually even breaking the branches so that it can feed more comfortably. You'll find with female giraffe, it's a weird thing, but they tend to not mind feeding lower than their head level, so they often will feed low down and bend their necks and break branches to feed at a more comfortable level, whereas the males are quite comfortable lifting their heads and reaching for food. It's a strange phenomenon, but it does happen quite regularly. And I always love the way that they feed. Look how they curl their lips back and that long tongue comes out, and they pull off little leaflets as they go, and you can actually even see the saliva as they're pulling off those leaflets. It's quite incredible. Now that particular tree, as you can see, has got small little spines, so it would still hurt if one of us had to go and grab at that branch the way that this giraffe is doing. But this giraffe has those very thick rubbery tongue that it's able to wrap around, and those hardened lips which are covered with small little bumps, and those bumps lack blood vessels and pain receptors or nerve endings, and so they don't actually feel pain or bleed anyway, and that's how they're able to feed off a lot of these big thorn trees and be able to digest the food that they get off them. So it's pretty incredible to watch. So there we go. You see what I was saying about them bending over. You'll find the males very seldom bend as far as that to be able to feed. They like to feed a lot more upright than what the females do. But it's quite something to be right next to a giraffe like this and just be kind of towered over by them. You forget just how big they are until you're really close to a giraffe and it sort of looks down upon you. It's a strange thing to see something so high up in the air, and the way that they move around, it's just phenomenally interesting. Asnam, I think I got it right. I hope I did. You're a new viewer, so welcome to Safari Live. I hope that you're enjoying the experience so far, and you want to know whether male giraffe are bigger than females. Well, yes, they are. So a male giraffe, when he's fully grown, will stand about 1 meter taller than a female giraffe. So he stands at about 5.5 meters tall, whereas a female giraffe will be at about 4.5 meters tall. Now, that's in feet. I'm not quite sure because my maths is not very good. So if you are from that side of the world that needs feet, well, we'll have to try and get a Google calculator out. Maybe Alice can help me quickly and tell me exactly how many feet 5.5 meters is, but I'd imagine it's about 20 odd, somewhere around there. Now, our giraffe has just left that tree, and the reason why it would have left that tree, this is also an interesting part about trees, is that trees are able to respond to the way they are being fed upon. So we would imagine, there goes our giraffe over the top, and we would imagine that trees are not able to work out what they're doing or be able to defend themselves, but in the case of giraffes and varying other animals that eat them, what trees will do is produce tannins. Now, tannins make the leaves bitter, and it makes it very uncomfortable for the giraffe to actually eat those, and so after a while the leaves don't taste very good, and that's when the giraffe will leave that tree alone and go on to the next one. Now, the acacia species that we were talking about earlier, they actually can release a pheromone that is passed on by wind, and they can warn the other trees downwind of them as to what's going on, and to be able to then protect themselves. So when these giraffes come along, the trees are already producing those tannins, already a little bit bitter, and so they don't actually get fed on heavily, and that's why you see them moving quite a lot while they feed, which is really cool. Now, unfortunately, our giraffe has hidden itself away. I'm going to carry on because we are getting absolutely baked by the sun where we are sitting now, so I'm going to start moving around a little bit. We'll come back to this area a bit later in the afternoon and see if anything else has turned up around the dam. I think we've had an absolutely phenomenal sort of last 45 minutes checking out the area around Gari Dam. There's been zebras and giraffe and buffalo and impalas and nyalas and monitors and birds, and well, it's all been happening. So it's been a wonderful display, actually. We've had mammals, we've had birds, and we've had reptiles. What are we missing? Amphibians. We're missing amphibians. It would be nice to find a little frog, don't you think? I think a frog would have been a perfect sort of combination for all of that. We'll have to wait until the summer months, though, unfortunately, for our froggies. We're not going to see too many now, and I'm really looking forward to the frogs coming back. I know Taylor is too. Taylor and I both love frogs, and we love to do frogging and go out at night, and when you hear all their calls and go and look for all the different ones. And it was super cool that this year Taylor got to see some frog species that she's never seen, which was very exciting. So I was happy for her when she saw her golden leaf folding frog and banded rubber frog. So, Karen, you say 3 stories is 30 feet, so there we go, somewhere close to that. I was going to go with 27, that was what I was originally going to go with, because for some reason 27 was in my mind, but I don't know. Like I say, maths was not my strong point, as my parents will attest, and neither was it my brother's strong point, so we're obviously not a mathematical family, not like our geniuses in the tech departments, Connor and Alex and Peter. They're all the mathematicians amongst us, so we'll leave all of that to them. Senzo, were you good at maths at school?
Yeah.
You were? Well, that's not surprising, Senzo. You're a very sharp lad, and I'm not surprised at all that he was good at maths. You're lucky, Senzo. Some of us are not gifted with the maths gene, unfortunately. But it is a beautiful day, I can tell you that much, and what is quite nice is seeing all the flowering knob thorns, because in my heart I know that summer is coming, and I'm a summer boy through and through. I don't really like the winter too much. It's dry, it's dusty, it's cold, and that's not how I like to be. I like it when it's warm and when there's, lots of things going on, and so when I see the knobthorns flowering, I'm already getting excited, because I know that after the knobthorns we're going to start to see little changes everywhere. Temperatures are getting warmer, days are getting longer, and then we get an absolute explosion of insects and animals and birds, and well, it just becomes really nice to be out here. So I'm really hoping for all of that and can't wait for it to come. Unfortunately though, I think the way things are going, it might mean that I might be up in Kenya when all of that happens here, and well, Kenya will be going the opposite way, so it will be going into its dry season, so I'm being punished with an eternal winter, if that's what you can call it, although being sent to Kenya is not a punishment by any stretch of the imagination at all. It is one of the most beautiful countries. Senzo, did you have fun there? Because I haven't had a chance to really spend much time with Senzo.
Yeah, I did.
You did? Senzo's got this little smile on his face, like he had a lot of fun. He's saying it as though he didn't have that much fun, but I feel like he's having a lot of fun in Kenya. He was telling me though that the balloon in Kenya was the most amazing thing that he's ever done, so I'm very, very jealous of him up in the balloon. I'm sure he had a wonderful time, and well, he brought us some incredible images from there, so thank you, Senzo, for that. And it's been so nice to have the Mara, and I know this afternoon they're busy with their rehearsals as they prep for their next TV show this weekend, and we have to wish them good luck for their rehearsals and their TV show. I'm sure they're going to bring the house down. Last week was an absolute bumper episode with all kinds of rarities that, well, I'm jealous that they got to see. Servals and wild cats, and those 5 cheetah brothers are just something else, aren't they? So it's going to be a real special treat to go up into that part of the world, and I think every part of the crew is all looking forward to spending time up there. The ones that have been in Djuma, and I know a lot of them in Mara are looking forward to getting back to Djuma. So it's going to be nice to have the two teams running and moving around and having a lot of mixing up. It certainly is a wildlife spectacle when both are in operation. So it's been a great addition to our whole Safari Live experience, and I hope a lot of you have enjoyed it too. In fact, I hope all of you have enjoyed it. Now I'm just going slowly southwards on Twin Dams because I want to go past Chelapan, and then, not that there's any water at Chelapan, which would mean that's why the buffalo aren't really here. They used to like Chelapan because it's a nice place to wallow. But what I'm going to do is from here I'm going to then head towards Twin Dams, because Twin Dams, well, that does have water, and so if you're a thirsty leopard in this afternoon, and then you're going to probably want to have a little drink. I know if I was a leopard I would want to have a little drink of water, and so Twin Dams must be the closest point to where Thamba was this morning. So I'm going to go and check there and see. Hopefully he's lounging about on his termite mound like he was doing a few afternoons ago, or if not, just in the shade around that area. Now, what are these tracks here? No, those are not tracks that we need to worry about. Actually, those tracks are quite cool. So these are tracks for a certain individual animal, which I'm going to show you now. Senzo, can you show those ones over there, please? Because this is quite cool, because it's not something we see every day. I'm just going to jump out quickly. Now, if we have a look here, I'm just going to circle where I'm pointing. So it's all of that there. We have very long, elongated fingers, and then we've got a little opposable thumb coming off here. So these are tracks for a baboon. Now the front foot is this one over here. It's got the long toes going forward, and then you've got, you see, a B shape like that tells you baboon. If it was a vervet, it would come down and make a V for vervet. So on the front foot, baboon, and then this is the long back pad over here. But there is something else in this track that you don't often see with baboons, because remember, baboons don't have a similar tail structure to what the vervet monkeys do. But you see that there's a long elongated line here. Now that is from the tail of a baboon. So what would have happened is this baboon probably sat there and the tail went down, and that's how we've been able to see the tail. You don't generally see it in baboon tracks because, like I say, their tail is held up high and doesn't touch the ground, not like a vervet that tail comes this way. So nice to see in a track, and not a track that we'll see very often at all. The problem is if baboons have been here, in all likelihood they have headed down towards Twin Dams. Now I'm just sorting out my mic pack that it doesn't fall out the car, and it means that if they've gone down to Twin Dams, the chances of there being a leopard sitting there is probably not very good, because the baboons won't tolerate a leopard at a dam. They're not going to be very happy if there's a spotted cat sitting there, and especially a young leopard like Thamba will easily be dominated by a big troop of baboons. Now I have to make sure that I plug myself in, because I have this nasty habit of getting out the car and forgetting. Karen, you say that's a great track. Well, thank you, Karen. I think so too. It's not one I've seen in a long time with baboons. Generally, the baboons tend to have their, like I say, their tails up. So I was quite happy to actually see that. And the thing about baboons is, the problem with them is, especially early in the morning, if there's been baboons walking somewhere, is they get your hopes up quite a bit, because you see these tracks and they look very paw-like, and there's this kind of shape on the road and you think lions all of a sudden, or leopard, and then it turns out to be a baboon. So they kind of trick you a little bit with that, but always nice to see the opposable thumbs and to be able to show you the difference between them and vervet monkeys, and how we know the tracks. Even on a baby baboon, you can see very clearly that it's a baboon rather than a monkey. So, Justin, you want to know if a baboon can wag its tail. Well, Justin, if you give it a treat, then it does wag its tail. It will sometimes even sit and wag its tail for you if you hold the treat nicely. No, I'm just joking, Justin. They don't actually wag their tails at all. Their tails are pretty flimsy and don't really do much, actually. They help balance a little bit when they're climbing, but it doesn't actually move much like a vervet monkey's tail. You see the vervet monkey tail moving quite a bit and going in different directions to help balance, but with the baboons, not at all. Their tail just tends to hang down. And there's another species for the afternoon. I wonder how many species we're on now, but there goes some kudu, a rather young kudu male that's actually moving away at the moment. There he is at the back, and then the females and young ones. And I wonder if this is not our same grouping of kudus we had yesterday, because where we had them yesterday was Nyala Road South. Now I'm not very far from there, actually, so I wouldn't be surprised if it is the same group that I had yesterday. And you can see a bit of grooming going on, keeping that fluffy tail all nice and clean and not matted in any way, so that when it has to show its fluffy white tail, that everybody can see it. Well done, boy. You've done a good job. You can also see his beard is starting to grow, so he's doing his best lion impersonation for today, getting his mane going down his throat and on his back, and you're looking very pretty. Yes, we're talking about you. What are you listening to? I don't see anything, and the other kudu are not in any way watching or listening to anything, so I don't think we have anything to worry about. It's always good to watch animals when they start to listen in a direction or look very hard in a certain place. It's worth just double checking, because you never know what could be there. Sometimes it might be a leopard or a lion that's hiding and it's sitting crouched, and even though the kudu haven't seen it, they know something's afoot and they'll stare in that direction. So it's always worth, as a person, making sure that you have a look and check. Now, I'm going to sit and enjoy my kudus and slowly meander my way down to Twin Dams, and while I do that, I believe Tara that has something that might make these kudus very nervous should they move in this direction.
Yep, no matata, pull in. Welcome back, everybody. We've just found the big cats. Amazing. So definitely not moved too far from all accounts from this morning. Looks like they are out for the count, but it is World Lion Day today, so I was just saying, you don't usually have the animal whose day it is on Safari Live. The animals always seem to know, and they seem to just disappear on that day, so absolutely fantastic. And thanks very much to Tristan, because he actually found them this morning. He'd been tracking them yesterday, only to find that they'd gone on to Torchwood, but this morning they made it back this side for us. So definitely well done to Tristan, his tracking skills. Now I was just saying to Seb, has he seen the clip of the mouse running into the Nkuhuma female? And then I said, oh, I'll save it for when we're live. So have you seen it?
Which clip? The mouse running into?
So we had the Nkuhuma Pride on the road, and one of the females was sleeping, and literally out of the bush a mouse runs straight into her.
Oh, wow.
She jumps up, not knowing what on earth's gone on. And the mouse obviously backtracks very quickly, but she then glared at us thinking that we'd thrown something at her. So yeah, you'll have to check it out, Seb. It is amazing.
For sure.
so funny. And it was literally just like this. They were all just passed out first thing in the morning. And like we say, cats might be flat, but something can happen. And to be fair, I hadn't thought that could happen. But it did just prove the point. Anything is possible in the bush. Now we've got a few flies around this afternoon. I've been battling with them a little bit, and it looks like this female's battling with them. And I think this is the female. I think Seb saw that she's got the hole. I think Tristan saw this morning. It could be she got on the wrong side of a horn. So that could be why maybe the flies are bothering her a little bit more than maybe the other lions. But if she gets irritated enough, she might just get up and move. And of course those whiskers are sensory organs. Nice one, Derek. Lions having a lie-in on Lion Day. Couldn't have phrased it better myself. But obviously those whiskers very important for letting the cat know where it can and can't put its head, just like your cat at home. They're usually about the same length as the width of their body, so if they've got the whiskers somewhere and they're touching, the chances are it's not going to be able to fit. Although I think domestic cats don't always listen to that advice from the whiskers. Yeah, lots of ears twitching and lots of tails twitching. So I believe you guys have caught up with a buffalo at the dam, and I think Tristan's right, I think they are possibly following the buffalo. So as the sun sets, these cats might start hunting this evening, because their bellies don't look full. Looks like they could do with a meal. But obviously conserving their energy is the best action at this stage. So they're not hungry enough to go hunting during the hot temperatures of the day. And Ariel, good afternoon to you, also wanting to know how often they do hunt. So if they hunt a buffalo, pride this size, it might last a couple of days maybe. There's quite a few mouths there. And then they will literally gorge themselves and have huge bellies that you look like you want to take a pin to them and pop like a balloon. And they will digest that for another few days, and then they'll start hunting again. So they have to take in, on average, it will be about 7 kilos of meat a day for an adult lion. But as I say, they can take it all in one sitting and it will digest over the course of a few days. So as I say, it will average out to about 7 kilos. That's usually for quite a big male. Probably for a female you're looking maybe about 4 or 5 kilos. And apparently a male could take in 40 kilos in one sitting. That's quite a feat. 40 kilos of meat. But that is a big male lion. Hi, Brian. Brian wanting to know how many hours a day a lion can sleep. When they're full and there's no reason to move, they could sleep up to 22 hours a day because they're just busy digesting that food. But if they're hungry and they haven't eaten for a while, then they might be a lot more active. Especially if they're very hungry, then they're probably more likely to go out and about searching for food, creating opportunities to feed. So they won't be sleeping for as long. Hi Kate, welcome on board. Kate's wanting to know if the animals become habituated to the vehicles, will that not make them more susceptible to hunting? Now, herbivores, because if it's the hunting of herbivores, hunting by people, okay. Copy that. So hunting by people. So there are reserves in South Africa where hunting is not allowed at all, and this is one of them. So the animals here have no fear of people actually getting a permit and shooting them. But there are other reserves where animals will be hunted, and they will learn very quickly to avoid the vehicles. Now, what was really amazing is in my old reserve, we actually had to dart the lions, and the lionesses there were super intelligent. I mean, I've never seen lions so intelligent, and the one female watched everything, and they learnt that the vet would use a particular vehicle, so they would learn to run away from that particular vehicle. The game viewers, that's fine, but this one particular vehicle they ran away from. So we thought, okay, well, we'll outwit them. So we took the vet in a different vehicle, and they were sat with us in the game vehicle, all nice and relaxed. We'd watch them throughout the night, so we knew where they were in the morning, so the vet could get the right lion or lioness. And literally, as this vehicle pulled up, the one female looked at the person and realised it was the vet. I'm sure she did, because she looked behind her, looked at the vehicle again, and ran off. And the other females were kind of looking at her going, well, what's wrong? Well, what's the story? But they ran after her because she scarpered. So yes, they do know what's going on, and I think he had his dart gun at the ready, and I think it was that stance that she had clocked. So yes, very intelligent. So needless to say, the vet didn't get her that day. This is absolutely fantastic. Chilling with African lions this afternoon. And there's a number of cubs, different ages. I think there's a month or so separating them. And I think, did I hear right, they're about 8 months old, 9 months old?
Yeah, around 9 years, 9 months.
Yeah. So they will be eating meat now. They would be fully weaned. Hi, Jackie. Jackie asking how long will they stay together. And with the females, they'll generally stay together throughout their life. Unless the pride gets too big, then you tend to get the pride splitting up and going separate ways. Oh, look at that. And the whole reason why the lions actually live as a family is to actually pull down large prey, so they're able to tackle the buffalo and the giraffe and large animals like that. So obviously the more mouths to feed is the downside, but there are more bodies to try and catch the larger prey. And what's really interesting is other cats that are generally solitary, like tigers and leopards, in some areas they're seen to be working together. So in Ranthambone Park in India, they've actually started seeing them hunting the water buffalo, which is really quite interesting, because as I say, tigers are generally solitary cats, and there's even been possibility of the leopards in the Sabi Sands actually cooperating as well. I know there was a talk of expanded pride theory in leopards a few years ago, because actually, as myself and Seb were just talking as we were driving down to relocate the lions, about seeing 5 and 6 leopards all on one kill. I was never lucky enough to find them on the kill, but we actually shared a sighting that we actually published as a paper about the leopard male interacting with his 3-year-old son and 1-year-old cubs, and that was Karula's offspring. So there could be something to that, and that's to make use of the larger prey. There you go, she's getting a little bit irritated with the flies. There you go, you can see she doesn't have a big belly on her. So I think Tristan's right, I think they might go hunting tonight. What a shame. Hi Yvonne, welcome on board. Asking if the other lions will actually help look after the injured lioness if she's not able to hunt for herself. And she will, you know, she doesn't get involved in the hunt if she hangs back. She may have to wait for the sorry, I thought someone was calling me then to come into the lion sighting. But yeah, she might have to wait for the others to actually feed before she's allowed to feed. But they're quite robust animals as well. I mean, I haven't actually seen the wound, but it could be that it is just superficial, and it should actually heal fairly cleanly and rapidly. But animals are, it's amazing, they can sometimes get beaten up quite badly, and they are able to actually survive those injuries. And especially living as a pride, again, she is going to be helped out with that. You know, so it's not like she's a solitary cat, and if she's injured, then she could reduce the, she could lose the ability to actually hunt for herself. So she can lean on the others for food. Hi, is it Gunshot? Hopefully I've got that right. Oh, okay. Oh, Dumb Shark. Sorry, Dumb Shark. Getting the name wrong there. Asking what lions do for fun. And they play, don't they? And yeah, you do get the cubs playing, and play is really important, especially at a young age, for any animal, because it allows them to build their muscles, hone their skills, so pouncing on each other, sort of testing the waters, if you like, of what they can and can't do. And they will carry that through, and occasionally you do see the females playing with the cubs as well. And I've even seen the cubs playing with males. So sometimes, especially some of the younger females, might get that little play bug for a few minutes and try and pounce on the other one. But generally speaking, the older females are past it, and you know, quite happy for the kids to play. I'm just trying to remember, I think I have seen them biting each other's tails occasionally. If there's a tail that's being flicked, I've seen one, say, sort of trying to bite it every so often. I think they do have a slight sense of humour. Oh, so we go from the tawny cats to a spotty cat. This is an amazing afternoon.
Well, happy Thursday, everybody. It's a cat galore at the moment, and so there's little Thamba slowly creeping along. Looks like he's maybe spotted something, and he's moving closer towards the road, which is great. I don't know if we're going to be able to keep him for that long, because it goes into a bit of a dip here, and then from there it's going to be quite tough, but I'm hoping he's coming up towards Twin Dams. We're just on the eastern side of the Mulawati, and he's looked like he's been walking up and down, so we found his tracks, and we followed them along and found him sitting on the southern side of the road. So he's slowly creeping northern direction, which is very good. But look at him, isn't he the most beautiful cat? Now my day is completely complete. I've had everything that I could have asked for today. I've had elephants, I've had lions, and now one of my favorite leopards in the whole world, Thamba. So it is a good day today, that is for sure. And I'm super glad that we found him. Hello, boy. And look at those beautiful eyes and that little pink nose. Very typical of this individual. He's such a good looking leopard. Now, the problem is that with him being on these kind of areas is that there's quite busy, which is not great for a young leopard. I'm sure he doesn't really like all the attention of the cars. So hopefully he'll cross over onto our side and we'll be able to then see him a little bit better and in a quieter space. But I know a lot of you are very happy to see him and are all saying hello. So I'm sure if he could speak, he would say hello back. It's great that he's at least come and shown himself. Now there's a vehicle that is here, so Senzo, I'm going to ask you if you can just quickly keep an eye on him while I move out the way, because it's a private car that wants to get past, so hopefully he won't move. At least Senzo knows where he is. I can't see him very well with the naked eye, but I'm just going to pull off for this car so that they are able to get past me. Let them go. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around Senzo. It's going to make life a little bit easier because he's heading in that direction. So, here we go. Okay, Senzo, you're going to have to try and spot him again, which is going to be interesting, to say the least. As you can see, a little bit of a car pile up at this stage, which is what I expected for this part of the world. There he is. Senzo, can you see him still? Okay, there we go. So at least he hasn't moved. If he had moved, it would have been quite tough for us, but he's stayed in exactly the same spot. And actually, I think we might have a better angle on him now. Ariel, who's a new viewer from our Nat Geo shows. Hello, Ariel, and welcome to our Safari Live experience from South Africa. And you are joining us on a perfect day because we've got all of our cats out and about, and you say leopards are your favorite. Well, Ariel, I think you'll find that most of the Safari Live crew, I have a soft spot for the leopards, and I know they are my absolute favorite animal, and I could spend all of my time with them. So any day with a leopard is a good day. I agree with you, and I'm also very excited to be seeing him. So it's definitely improved my mood somewhat, and I think we've had an absolutely incredible afternoon. If you think the amount of species we've seen this afternoon just goes to show you that sometimes luck can be on your side, and there are so many things to actually see out here that we get so focused on one or two animals that in the end we can still see a lot. Now, typical of a leopard, he's gone into the shadows and into the thicker, denser areas, and a young leopard will do this because he's a little nervous of the cars that are here. Now some of the cars are going to move off and it will be a lot more quiet, and I would hope then that he's going to start to come out, and if he comes out onto the top bank here, we're going to be in the perfect place to see him. But you can see that typical tail that gives a leopard away often, that white tip that just curls up, and that's one of their downfalls for us as a guide. It's one of the first things you can spot when a leopard is walking around, is that little white tail. So he's very camouflaged, as you can see there, besides the tail sticking out. So I don't know if this is Jamie from Kenya or if this is Jamie, but Jamie wants to know if I tracked Thamba or if I stumbled upon him. Well, Jamie, it was a bit of both. Because what happened was we found tracks in the Mulawati, and the tracks went towards Twin Dams and came back again. So I was following the tracks along, and I walked up and there were two vehicles, and they looked at me and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm tracking a leopard." And they said, "Well, the leopard is sitting right next to us." And so I then quickly went and got my car and now was able to find Thamba sitting here with these two cars. So I didn't know that he was here. We were actually just following his track. So it's a bit of both, though. We can't claim it as a full-on tracking experience because others had already found him, and he was south of the boundary. So I would have had to stop on the road here and would have been difficult to follow the tracks any further. So the fact that they spotted him has helped. Now he has gone into a little thicket, but he is moving up towards us, and so I would assume that we're going to lose visual of him for a little bit, and then hopefully he's going to come back up and head back towards Twin Dams. The amount of tracks that are here for him is incredible. They're just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and so I'm sure he's going to maybe head towards Twin Dam for a drink. If not towards Twin Dam, there are some Impalas just down the road here that he might be listening to, and that's maybe where he's heading. Is he coming our way, Senzo? Can you see him? So Senzo says he can see him and he's coming slowly, which is fantastic news. So hopefully he's going to move up and out. And so while we sit and wait for him, and we're going to be patient and hope that he does come out, let's go back to Tara and the beautiful Nkuhuma Pride.
Oh, amazing that you got to see Thamba again. And I can't get over the size of that boy's paws. He is going to be huge. Now I think, Tristan was actually mentioning that he was watching Tingana and... Sorry, Thamba, not Thamba. Oh, so many names for me to remember. But he was actually watching Tingana and Tandy mating, and funnily enough we've had the same situation with Induna and Karula and Yambili Ordan. Induna was actually in the same area. I remember Mark actually found them. So after they mated outside of my window, he found them. That was amazing in itself, but he actually found them in the drainage line, I think the next day, and Induna was around in the same area. So it's really unusual, and I've been kind of thinking of why they might be tolerated, and I do wonder if Induna, because he'd spent time with Yambili, that it was almost accepted that they were related, so he wasn't a threat. Because generally speaking, if you have animals that share genes, if they're related, then there's no reason to fight because the same genes are going to get passed on. So it could be that that's why he wasn't seen as a threat, and I'm wondering if it's the same story with Thamba, but I need to find out who his father is supposed to be. That would be an interesting one. So if Tingana is his father or not, but I'm sure you guys at home can help me with that. So I think we're going to head back to Tristan. He might have had another sighting of the leopard again. So fingers crossed, and then hopefully I'll get some information about his father. So enjoy.
Well, Tara, as far as we know, we think that Tingana is the father of Hosana and this leopard that is now popped up onto the tree to show us his massive paws that he has. So little Thamba has now come out beautifully. He's sitting just next to the road on a stump and is watching around, and look at the size of those feet. Are they not absolutely huge? He really does have big feet for his age. It's amazing to see the size of his tracks. Look at that. They are monstrous. I'm pretty sure he's going to be a huge individual later in life. It's going to be great to see when he gets older. I hope that he ends up in a place that we can see him, because it'll be great if he does. He's an absolutely massive, I reckon, when he gets older, if he does grow into those feet. And so obliging of him to come and sit where he is sitting now. It's the perfect place for a leopard to be sitting nicely out in the open, so a little bit of patience was rewarded. Mike, it's difficult to see a nice spot pattern, but as they get older, so that spot pattern evens out and it starts to almost set for their adulthood, and so much easier when they get a little bit older. Also, as they get older, they'll get nicks out of their ears, scars on their faces, and prominent markings that we'll be able to use to identify them. So, I mean, a male cub of a year old this is pretty much how he's going to look. for the rest of his life in terms of his spot pattern. But when he was a 3, 4, 5-week-old cub, it would have been very difficult to get any sort of IDing features other than maybe the spots just above his whisker line that you could have used. But it's much easier when they do get older. They also take on a certain shape and a certain look about them, and it's interesting because I know a lot of you use spot patterns when you ID leopards, but when we here see leopards, it's almost instantly that you see them, you can recognize certain individuals. So for me, Thamba, Hosana, Shongile, there's just a look about them. I don't actually have to count their spots generally to know who they are. So it's one of those things. It's almost like if you've ever had pets and you've had dogs and cats, you know which ones are yours just by looking at them, and it's a similar kind of thing with the leopards. But isn't that beautiful? I wonder if he's seen something that he's just watching. Look, he's just putting his head over now. What have you seen, boy? And there are, like I said, were some impalas not too far away, so I wonder if he's not just watching those and he's using the stump perfectly to be able to hide. It's very cool. You clever boy. I can tell you though, we know that he hasn't been with Thandi for the last 2 days, possibly 3, but he still looks fantastic. He looks as though he's still managing to find food, and so whatever he is eating, he's doing perfectly well. He's not in any way losing condition. He looks healthy. His stomach looks quite round, so he's maybe, if he's feeding off birds and things like that, he's certainly successful in doing it. The other thing he could be targeting is terrapins and monitor lizards, as we know Shongile and Hosana did when they first were left on their own for long periods, and so maybe he started to learn how to do that, because there's no ways that Thandi has been back to him in the last 2 days. The fact that she's been mating with Tingana, we know that they were on the western side and into Arathusa yesterday, and then today they ended up, was there a little francolin there? Yes, there are francolins that are walking below his feet. Now, we saw him the other day growl at francolins when they walked past him, and I wonder if he's going to do the same with these francolins. Francolins, you are playing with your life. I was saying that they will readily eat birds. Now, one leopard that did go after birds quite a lot was Shivambalana. So, for those of you that remember Shivambalana, and where he got his name was actually from catching a emerald spotted wood dove, because that's what Shivambalana means. And he was sitting on a mound and a wood dove came flying past and he just grabbed it and jumped up and grabbed it. And so young leopards will feed on birds a lot. I think Thumba's a little bit confused by the brazen nature of francolins, because like I said the other day, he just started growling at them when he was trying to sort of sit behind a log and watch them, and now he looks as though he's thoroughly perplexed at the fact that these francolins are just playing around at his feet and are not really too scared of him and running away. So there we go, there's the little crested francolin underneath. You are a brave francolin, I can tell you right now. You're lucky that that's not Thandi, because you would be dead by now. So Thandi is a lot more lethal when it comes to hunting than what Thamba is at this stage of the game. What are you going to do? Hopefully he doesn't go pouncing after them, because we might then lose visual of him. Where he is now is absolutely perfect for us to be able to see him in great detail and be able to watch him nicely. And if he goes bounding after those francolins, he might go back into that horrible thicket that he was in just now. So I'm hoping that the francolins move away and we don't have to worry. Pygmy puff army, you say, so majestic? Well, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? A leopard sprawled out on a fallen over tree is about as good as anyone could wish for. Now if he just turns his head and rests his head on his paw and stares at us, we will have the perfect leopard sighting. So that's what I'm going to hope for. I'm sure he will eventually. He'll lose interest in those francolins if the francolins move off, and then he's going to look around, and being a young leopard, he often likes to look at people and varying other things, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him turn his head towards us. So it's going to be, hopefully, a nice long sighting with our little Thamba. Like I said, my day is absolutely made. I've had the most wonderful bush day, I think. Doesn't get much better than what I've had today. Oh, there he goes. You see, he's now looking at those francolins. I think the francolins are right below him now. I wonder if he's going to jump on them and pounce on them. He looks like he's getting ready. Look, he's positioning himself. Are you going to go? I wonder if he's going to pounce on them. Looks like he's getting ready. You can see his little bum is wiggling. I can't see his tail now. Tail of a leopard is normally their most expressive part, and just before they bounce you see the tail twitching, which there it is. You can see the tail just coming up between the grass there. I love a leopard's tail. The way it twitches is the best thing in the world. Don't go back down though. The Franklins needed to walk the other way. I think it would have been much better had they... Why is he going to go after them? Beard, you say volunteer cat toys. Well, yes, I don't know if it's volunteer or Darwin Awards today, but it is most certainly not the brightest Franklins out here, because they're moving straight towards our little leopard, and he's going to pounce on one of them if they're not careful. You can see he's moving away slightly now, but his little belly, I was looking through the binoculars, is quite full, so whatever he's been doing, he's found food somewhere. Now, he's just disappearing behind the mound, unfortunately. I'm going to try... Senzo, do you want me to go back a bit? I think I'm going to try and just go back, because he's walking back a little bit. I'm just seeing now. I just don't want to move too much, because I don't want the Franklins to get a fright and run away, and for him to lose an opportunity if he is hunting them. I don't think he's very sure what he wants to do. What are you doing, Thamba? You can just see the tail flickering through the grass there. So Senzo's battling a bit with all the grass that's around. There we go, there's the little tail. Take care, you want to know what the strongest muscle is in a leopard. Now, that's an interesting question. I would imagine, for me, it must be either in the forearms or around the shoulder blades. Those muscles there should be the most powerful. I don't think there would be many others, but in relation to their power of their jaws would be quite interesting. But most definitely, if you look at a structure of a leopard, most of its weight is going to be over its front shoulders, and that's where the biggest bulging muscles are. So I would imagine those muscles that attach to the shoulder blades and the forearms are all going to be their most powerful that they've got. Let's see, he's still not sure about these Franklins. The Franklins are still pottering about there. They haven't made any noise yet, which means they haven't actually seen this leopard, but he's just sitting kind of staring into the Franklins and watching what they're doing. I think he's a bit completely taken aback by their brazen attitude towards him. It's interesting because I've seen with Tiani, when she was young at his age, there's not a chance that Franklin would have got anywhere near her. She would have been like a shot onto those Franklins. So it's interesting to see how there's a difference. I don't think he would be as accommodating of Franklins walking right towards him. I think Thamba's still learning this whole process, and he's been fortunate in that he's had a mom that's fed him so well, and I think it's now he's going to start learning some very hard lessons as to what he actually can feed off. It's not going to be beautiful big impalas and kudus and waterbuck that mom has been feeding him over the last year. He's going to have to start looking at lots smaller animals in order to sustain himself. Holly, you're asking if you're wondering if Thamba will be bigger than Hosana. Holly, difficult to say. I mean, it's obviously there's genetics involved and there's all kinds of things, and maybe this period of Hosana not being with mom from such an early age might mean that he's slightly smaller, well, development-wise through these years than what Thamba is. You must remember Thamba is 6 months younger than what Hosana is, and they're pretty much the same size already, so it'll be interesting to see. And you also find that some leopards go through different growth spurts. Some are going to get bigger, some are going to get smaller, and it's going to be an interesting process as to see this sort of development and to see how they go and whether or not he does end up being larger than Hosana. It will be an interesting competition between the two of them because they're both quite big boys already for their age, and just judging by Thamba's feet, I think he might end up being a little bit larger than what Hosana would be. I think I'm going to just go back a little bit because from where we are there, that's not too bad. Thanks, Senzo. That's okay. You've got a nice gap now. I thought for a second there you wouldn't be able to see his head. Sorry, my fault. But Senzo's having to deal with lots of vegetation in front of this little leopard. Look, He's watching. He's not sure as to what to make of these francolins. Sammy, you're wondering what the pattern is for on a leopard is for. Now, I'm going to ask Senzo to zoom out a little bit, and you'll see exactly what the pattern is for. So if we come out more, Senzo, more. Right, now, can you see the leopard easily in that? No. So the pattern is there to break up the outline of this leopard. It makes it very difficult to see, particularly in dappled light that you see in shady areas like this. So the black spots help just to break up the outline. That coloration that they've got blends in with the color of the grass as well as the shadowy areas, and they become masters of camouflage. So that's why they're spotted, is all to do with camouflage and nothing else. But if you were driving past quickly, to see that would be quite difficult. But look at that, isn't he beautiful? Yes, we're talking about you. You are probably one of the most good looking leopards in the Sabi Sands, I would say. And it's just been such a treat to spend so much time with him over the last few months. You know, we've been spoilt with the sightings we've had of Thamba and Tundi, and you know, the fact that when he was born we saw very little of him. The first sort of 7 months or 8 months of him being alive, we didn't get many sightings at all, and now it seems as though he's one of our go-to leopards, and we've been so blessed to have been able to watch him as he's growing and as he's starting to get into adolescence and moving into his teenage years, so to speak. And to watch him as he develops has really been a treat. So I count ourselves very lucky to not only have him but Hosana and Shongila, and to watch these youngsters make their way in life is a very, very special thing. There's very few people in this world that will be able to do that, and it's the best part about our job is that we're able to do this with all of you, and to have the biggest safari vehicle in the world with all of you watching, and to go through these trials and tribulations of these young cats the way that we do is such a special thing. So I'm certainly very appreciative of the time we spend with them, and I'm sure a lot of you are too. And count ourselves very lucky that we can do this kind of thing, and that we're in a reserve in probably one of the best leopard viewing destinations in the world.